Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into the mist of feudal Japan, not through the gates of a palace, but along the dirt path where a boy with nothing begins to walk toward everything. You will be this boy, and this story, your story, begins with silence, except for the creak of a wooden floor, the rustle of a cotton robe, and a name that will one day echo across centuries: Miyamoto Musashi. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are born under the name Benosuke in the village of Miyamoto. Your earliest memories are of earth and wind, of your father's stern presence and a sword that never rests. He is a retainer turned ronin, and while others bring their children sweets, your father teaches you how to hold a bakken. You are 7, maybe 8. Time out here is just marked by seasons and bruises. He drills you not for play, but for war. There is no warmth in his voice, only the sharpness of discipline. One wrong step and the wooden sword cracks against your knuckles. You learn quickly, not out of curiosity, but necessity. Your mother? She is a ghost in this memory. Gone, perhaps dead, perhaps discarded by fate or by your father's will. No one speaks of her, and you grow up not knowing softness, only silence, hunger, and a distant dream. Freedom, maybe, or just the chance to walk your own road. Historians still argue whether your father, Musashi, abandoned you or prepared you with ruthless intention. Some say he left for war. Others say he vanished after a duel gone wrong. But one thing is clear. By the time you are 10, you are alone. And somehow, the sword is still in your hands. You begin to wander, drawn by whispers of other warriors. There is a shrine you sleep beneath, your stomach tight with hunger and your eyes wide in the dark. The stars do not speak, but the wind feels like it's trying to. You craft your own bakken now, from a tree limb smoothed with stone. It's heavier than a real sword, awkward in your hands, but it feels like an extension of your spine. You swing it in silence, copying what you've seen, imagining enemies, testing your breath. The night is your dojo. There's a story told by old villagers. You, barely a teen, challenge your first swordsman to a duel. His blade is real, yours is wood. You win, not through grace, but because you charge like a storm. No elegance, just raw intention. They say he didn't expect the fury of a child. They say you broke his ribs. You don't know if it's true, but you let the tale spread. Soon, duels find you. Men want to test themselves against the boy who doesn't lose. And you, with no family, no home, and nothing to lose, accept everyone. Mainstream history notes your first recorded duel at age 13 against Arima Kihei of the Shinto Ryu. A trained swordsman, a man. He dies. Yes, 13. And the world, well, the part of it that cares about blades, starts to whisper your name. Musashi, the boy from nowhere who kills like a storm. You don't celebrate, you leave. You always leave. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a question begins to whisper. What is the purpose of victory if your hands are always stained with blood? But that question, that can wait. Right now, you walk alone again, the bakken in your hand, and the road stretching endlessly beneath your feet. You walk through the heart of war-torn Japan, a land stitched together by ambition and soaked in uncertainty.
Daimyo rise and fall like waves, and each province is a different chessboard. But you, still only a teenager, are not part of any game. You're the ghost that floats between boards. The sword is no longer just a tool. It's your language. It's how you announce yourself, how you defend your name, how you survive. You arrive in Kyoto, a city split between beauty and blood. Here the Yoshioka school reigns, masters of tradition, rich in prestige, and not exactly thrilled to see a scruffy outsider in threadbare robes challenging their pride. You call them out anyway. It's bold, maybe foolish. Historians still argue whether this was arrogance or a carefully calculated test. You defeat Yoshioka Seijuro, then his brother, then his nephew. By the third duel, they try to ambush you with dozens of men. You win. Again. It's a blur of movement, sweat, blood, and wooden swords. Quirky fact? You carve your own bakken for this final ambush, from an oar, stolen from a boat you find docked on the way to the fight. You shape it as you walk, just hours before battle. That oar breaks skulls. It becomes legend. You don't die, but you leave a trail of broken bodies and broken pride. Kyoto will never forget your name. You vanish once more. Some say you're hunted. Others say you seek something deeper, a technique, a path, a truth that doesn't involve blind killing. The man who walks away is not the same boy who arrived. Something in you starts to shift. You don't smile. You don't gloat. You simply keep moving. And the legend of Musashi begins to take root. You head for the mountains, not to hide, but to learn. In the caves of Mount Hiko, monks speak of emptiness, balance, breathing. They don't praise your sword, they question yourself. At first, it irritates you. You came to refine your strikes, and instead they hand you silence. But slowly, your breath begins to stretch. Your steps soften. You sit. You listen. You realize the sword is just one edge of your being. The other edge is stillness. Mainstream history records little of this period, but the swordsman who reemerges from solitude is no longer just a brawler. You become deliberate, intentional. You read the Book of Changes, study painting, watch birds, the way a crane lifts its foot, the curve of a pine branch. You start to see combat as choreography, not just chaos. One quirky fact? You develop an odd habit of sleeping upright, perhaps from years of being ambushed. You never fully rest, but you always seem alert. Travelers tell stories. Musashi sleeps like a statue, eyes half-lidded, mind somewhere far away. By now, your fame is growing, but you're not building a school. You don't recruit disciples or chase titles. You walk, you duel, you vanish. And behind your every step, that lingering question, what is mastery, if not peace? You walk with one sword at your hip and another across your back. People stare. It's not traditional. It's not proper. It's not samurai. But you are no samurai. You are Musashi. And this is the path you're carving, quite literally, through Japan's martial history. They'll call it Niten Ichiru, the two heavens as one school. A style where both swords, the long and the short, are wielded at once. Not for spectacle, but for fluidity, for balance, for adapting to the rhythm of chaos. You don't create this style in a moment of genius. It comes like all things in your life, through failure, through wandering, through hunger and observation. You watch a crane defend itself with both wings. You study duels from behind trees. Notice how most men leave their wakizashi, The short sword, untouched, dead weight. You think, why carry a blade you never use? You begin training with both. At first, it's clumsy. Your footwork trips. Your wrists scream. But day after day, you swing until it feels like breathing. You don't write it down. Not yet. You just live it. You enter duels now not with one hand, but two. And the world starts to notice. There's a story, a funny one if it weren't so brutal. You're challenged by a swordsman who insists on ceremony. He sets a time, a location. He wears his finest, polished armor. A crowd gathers. You show up late, disheveled, carrying two wooden swords. The crowd murmurs. The other man fumes. You bow once, and then it's over. Two strikes, both hands moving in a blur. One to the head, one to the ribs. He collapses. You don't even break a sweat. You walk away without a word. Whispers follow. Was it dishonor? Was it genius? Was it something else? Some say you were playing psychological games, intentionally disarming your opponents before the duel even began. Others say you simply didn't care about appearances, only results. But what's clear is this: your style, this unorthodox two-sword dance, is changing the way people fight. And fear. You keep moving, of course. You never stay long. By now, your clothes are patched, your beard long, your skin weathered by sun and rain. But people recognize you. Children run behind you shouting, "Musashi, Musashi!" You never turn around. Not out of arrogance, just momentum. You sleep under eaves, bathe in rivers, eat only when someone offers. You refuse to be tied to any lord, no retainer's salary, no manor house. Because deep down, you believe the moment you accept comfort is the moment your edge begins to dull. Here's a quirky little detail. You often carry a brush and ink, sketching quietly between duels. Animals, landscapes, even self-portraits. Some of these drawings still survive. Delicate, minimal, precise. The same traits that mark your swordsmanship. You are not just a warrior. You are becoming a philosopher of motion. A dance with blades. A monk with a temper. And in the gaps between combat, you begin to wonder, what is the point of all this? What is the point of winning? Of defeating? Of breaking bones and walking away again and again? The road stretches on. You walk it still. But now, you're starting to listen.
The road leads you into the mountains, where the fog hangs low and the trees seem older than memory. You walk alone, as always. But something is different now. You're no longer running from shadows or chasing names. The duels come less frequently, not because you've grown soft, but because fewer dare to challenge you. You feel it, the weight of fame, the strange silence it brings. Here, in the mountains of Kyoto, you find a place. It's not a temple, not in the formal sense. No monks, no incense, just a hollow between rocks and a stream that sings in the dark. You sleep there, for days, maybe weeks. Time no longer ticks for you, it breathes. And in that stillness, you begin to unlearn everything you thought you knew. You place your swords beside you, but you do not touch them, not for practice, not for defense, not even for reassurance. You just sit. It's agony at first. Your body aches to move. Your instincts scream to train. But your mind begins to stretch. The wind speaks in riddles, the water in koans. You start to see your opponent's faces again, not the ones you admired,
but the ones you forgot. The nervous hands, the frightened eyes, the disbelief at the end. You begin to wonder, what would you have become if you had lost? Or if you had never fought at all? You realize that the sword, your most faithful companion, is also a barrier. It cuts both ways, not just through others, but between you and the world. So you start writing. Not poetry at first, not philosophy, just thoughts, observations. If you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the masters. Seek what they sought. You write these not for others, but for yourself, to make sense of the fog in your head, to remember that your path is not paved in blood, it is carved through self-understanding. You begin carving wood, quiet, repetitive, pointless work, but in it something stirs, a kind of peace you've never earned with a sword. You even laugh one day, just once, when a bird lands on your shoulder and won't leave. It's the first sound you've made in weeks. And then, one evening, under a violet sky, you pick up your sword again. But something has changed. You no longer wield it with rage, or ambition, or even purpose. You wield it with clarity and compassion. You understand now, mastery is not about conquering others. It's about knowing when not to draw the blade. It's about fighting only when the soul can remain unshaken. The wind shifts. The stream whispers. You nod. You leave the hollow without looking back. Not because you've outgrown it, but the temple, you realize, was never in the rocks or the trees. It was in you, all along.
You descend from the mountains, but you are no longer the man who climbed them. Something within you has settled. Something else has awakened. The world, with all its noise and urgency, rushes to greet you. Peasants in rice fields, samurai in armor, merchants on the roadside. But you no longer rush to meet it. You move slower now, with intention. You spend your days walking the villages that dot the edge of civilization. You eat what you are given. You speak little. People watch you carefully, some in awe, some in fear. You are aware of the whispers. They call you the Sword Saint, the undefeated, the wanderer who fights without a home. But they don't know the full story. They don't see how often your hands tremble, not with fear, but with restraint. You still carry 2 swords, but you haven't drawn them in months. Instead, you begin carrying something new, a brush. It begins casually, a piece of charcoal, a crude sketch of a tree, a rabbit, a distant mountain. But soon, the lines come easier. The brush moves with the same instinct you once reserved for the blade. And you realize, painting is combat too. Not with enemies, but with ego. Each stroke reveals something. Sometimes it's beauty. Sometimes it's doubt. Sometimes it's a memory you buried under years of blood and silence. You paint on rice paper, on scrolls, on cave walls. You paint tigers that look back at you with defiance. You paint waves that seem to crash beyond the frame. But your favorite subject is emptiness, blank space. You learn that the silence between things is as important as the things themselves. It's what gives the painting breath, just as the pause in combat reveals the opponent's rhythm. One day, a child sees your work. He asks if you're a monk. You smile. You don't correct him. Maybe you are. Not in name, but in spirit. You've learned to accept the duality inside you, the warrior and the poet, the destroyer and the creator. You understand now why the ancients always paired swordsmanship with art, meditation, poetry. Because the blade without balance becomes a curse, and creation without courage becomes hollow. As seasons change, you begin to teach, not swordsmanship, but something deeper. You show a fisherman how to stand like a warrior while casting his net. You teach a weaver to breathe like a swordsman while tying knots. You tell a young girl to draw her name with the same presence she would use to draw a sword. You teach them not war. You teach them presence. Because you know not everyone is meant to fight with steel, but everyone must learn to fight with spirit. And in that teaching you find healing. The warrior in you still lives, but he has laid down his sword, for now. And in his place the artist emerges, not weaker, just wiser.
There is a man who seeks you out. You've never met him, but you know the type. Young, proud, his sword still too polished, his stance still too rigid, his questions loud and impatient. Word has reached him of the undefeated Ronin who wanders like a ghost through the provinces, painting tigers and teaching fishermen. He wants to test himself. You do not accept his challenge, not out of fear, but out of understanding. You've seen what becomes of men who chase glory too early. You've buried enough of them to recognize the hunger in his eyes. But the world doesn't always wake for wisdom. He follows you from town to town, a shadow wearing human form. At first the villagers find it exciting, a duel, they think, a story to pass down. They whisper about it as they walk behind you, unaware that the story they're hoping for could end in silence. One evening he confronts you at the edge of a forest. The sun, already low, casts long shadows through the trees. "Face me," he says, his voice straining to sound brave. You watch him for a long moment. You see it in his hands, the tremor he's hiding. You see it in his eyes, the fear buried under layers of pride. You shake your head slowly. "There's nothing for you here," you say. But he insists. And so, you do not reach for your sword. You kneel. You pull a brush from your sleeve, and you begin to draw, right there in the dirt, a single line, then another, a tree, a mountain, a crow. You do not speak. You do not look at him. You let the silence answer his challenge. And something strange happens. He does not draw his sword. He stares at the picture, at your stillness, at the brush held with the same grace one might hold a blade. And in that moment, something inside him wavers. His breath softens. His shoulders relax. You hand him the brush. He doesn't take it, not yet, but he kneels beside you and watches. That night, the duel doesn't happen. No one dies, but something is defeated. His need to prove himself to the world. You both sit as the sun disappears, the last of its light catching the curve of his blade and your line in the sand. You realize then, this is the duel you cannot win, because it is not yours to fight. The only person he needs to defeat is himself, just as you once did, and perhaps still do. Because the true enemy isn't the man before you. It's the part of you that still wants to draw your sword when silence would do. You nod to the boy, and he bows, not to your sword, but to your restraint. And in that moment, the wind moves through the trees like a whispered promise. You are not done yet, not with wandering, not with teaching, not with the battles that require no blood. You leave before sunrise. No farewells, no looking back. The road is soft beneath your feet, worn by pilgrims, poets, and wanderers who, like you, search for something that doesn't quite have a name. You carry no map. The path reveals itself a little at a time, like an old friend with secrets. It winds through pine forests and forgotten shrines, past steaming hot springs, and villages where the rice fields breathe mist in the morning. Sometimes a farmer offers you tea. Sometimes a child stares at your two swords, wide-eyed, until you smile and she runs off giggling. And sometimes you walk for hours without a single voice, save for the cicadas or the wind brushing through bamboo. You feel yourself shedding something. Not your weapons, not your name, but an urgency, a tension that once knotted itself into your spine. It begins to loosen. Every step farther from the duels and the shouts and the clenched fists of youth. Every step closer to something still, something clear. At a monastery perched on the edge of a cliff, a monk stops you. He says nothing, just offers you a bowl of barley and a place to sleep. You nod and sit with him. The silence between you is not empty. It is whole. In the morning, he points to the mountains. There is a place, he says, where the sword disappears. You understand, or you think you do. And so you climb. The air grows thin, the world quiet. You pass no one. Only moss-covered stones, trees that bend like old men in prayer, and waterfalls that speak without words. There is no battle here, no victory to be won. Just the sound of your breath, just the memory of all the moments you could have killed, but didn't. You realize then that your greatest duels were not the ones where swords clashed. They were the ones where you refused to draw. The boy by the forest, the drunk in the port town, the part of yourself that once needed to prove. Up here, above the world, you finally begin to see. The blade was always a mirror. And all this time, you were never fighting others. You were learning how not to fight yourself. You sit beneath a cedar tree, eyes closed, and for the first time in years, you feel weightless. You descend the mountain slowly. Your legs ache, but it's a different kind of ache now. Not from fighting or fleeing, but from simply being. Present, aware, unrushed. You carry no prize from the monastery. No scroll, no sword blessed by a monk. Only a silence inside you that hums like a temple bell. Down in the valley, a village emerges, quiet, industrious. You don't tell them your name, but they know who you are. Not because they've seen your face, but because your presence carries a stillness, like water that reflects only when undisturbed. An old carpenter watches you as you pass the rice fields. He gestures with a nod, offers you a place to stay. You accept, not out of need, but because something about the smell of sawdust and cypress feels familiar, almost like home. Days become weeks. The sword rests on the wall, and your hands learn a new kind of movement. Not strikes, not parries, but the patient shaping of wood. You learn to smooth a beam without splinters,
to carve joints that hold without nails, to see where the grain flows and follow it, not fight it. The carpenter doesn't speak much, but neither do you. Still, between you, something is exchanged, a rhythm, an understanding. You begin to see the parallels, that shaping wood is not unlike shaping a life. You cannot force it. You listen to it. You let it teach you how it wants to be formed. There is a boy in the village who watches you work. He never asks about your swords, but one day he asks if you ever get angry. You pause. Then you tell him, gently, that you used to be angry all the time, that it was once your fuel and your cage. He doesn't fully understand, but he nods. Later, he brings you a broken wooden toy. You fix it without a word, and when you hand it back, his face lights up in a way no victory ever has. That night, you walk through the moonlit fields, barefoot, listening to frogs and crickets and your own breath. And for the first time in your journey, you wonder if you've stopped running. Not because you've reached an end, but because there is nothing left to chase. No challenger, no shadow, no story you need others to believe about you. Just the steady sound of your heart and the wood shavings on the floor.
The days in the village lengthen like shadows at sunset. Your calluses grow, not from swordplay, but from chisels, planes, and sun-warmed hammers. The sword, untouched, rests above the doorway. Not forgotten, not abandoned, just at peace. You once believed stillness was a pause between battles. Now you know it can be the battle itself. Sometimes you catch yourself watching the clouds roll over the hills. They remind you of your younger self, drifting, unfixed, chasing the next gust of wind. Now you are more like the tree that watches the sky. One morning you wake to the sound of laughter. The boy you once helped is now carving toys beside the carpenter. They've given him a small blade, dulled at the tip. Still, his hands know how to shape joy from scraps of wood. He looks at you with a quiet pride, as if to say, "I remember what you taught without teaching." And in that look, you see a different kind of legacy. No school, no scrolls, no disciples bound by your name. Just a kindness passed along like fire catching dry grass, quiet, slow, inevitable. You take long walks through the fields now, not to scout, not to prepare, but to listen, to the creak of old trees, the chatter of crows, the rhythm of your breath in time with the earth. You visit the river often. It's narrower here, less wild, but the water sings the same song. Once you kneel by the edge and trace your reflection in the current. You see the same eyes, but behind them, something softer, not dulled, not broken, but refined, like steel tempered again and again in heat, now cooled by time and wisdom. That night, under a lantern's gentle glow, you write in your journal, not about battles or strategies, but about balance. The balance between action and rest, between mastery and mystery, between carving your name into stone and letting the wind carry your story like seeds. You close the journal and listen to the silence, to the breathing of the house, to your own soul settling into itself like dust on a blade that no longer needs to be drawn. And you think, maybe the blade that gathers no dust is the one finally allowed to rest. The seasons pass with a rhythm now, not like the march of time and war, but like the turning of a quiet wheel. You have grown fond of the village market. Each week the same faces greet you: the baker with flour-dusted hands, the fisherman who whistles a song with no melody, the child who tugs at your sleeve to show you her wooden toy horse, one the carpenter carved and the boy you mentored painted. No one here calls you Musashi. To them, you are the tall one who helps with the roof, or the quiet uncle who walks by the river. Your name, the name that once trembled lips in duels, no longer needs to be spoken to be known. And you prefer it that way. One evening, a traveler arrives, dust-covered, breathless, carrying stories from Edo. He speaks of samurai who boast your techniques but never met you, of books penned in your name but written by strangers, of schools that use your style as currency. You offer him tea, listen kindly, and say little. The traveler leaves before sunrise. He never knew he sat across from the man himself, and you never tell him. Because you've learned something in these quiet years. Sometimes letting go of your legend is the most powerful act of mastery. That night, as rain softens the roof, you sit by the hearth and read old writings, your own. There are pages filled with the language of steel and form, of rhythm and stance, but between the lines, something else lingers, a question you didn't know you were asking when you wrote them. What is a life well lived? You close the book and stare into the fire, not as a warrior, not even as a teacher, just as a man, one who fought, one who lost, one who learned, one who softened. You begin to understand that your greatest duel was never with another swordsman. It was with your own ego, your need to be remembered. And now, here in this quiet house, surrounded by people who do not bow, who do not fear, who simply wave to you as a neighbor, you are finally winning that duel. The fire crackles. The air smells of pine smoke and tea. You breathe deep, and in that breath you feel the presence of your younger self, the boy on the battlefield, the teen on the mountain, the ronin in the city, the monk in the temple. They are not separate versions of you. They are stepping stones on the same river path. And now you, the elder, sit on the riverbank, not needing to chase the current anymore, just listening, just being. And in that stillness, your name echoes through time, not shouted, not carved, but carried gently on the wind, like a truth that needs no trumpet, like a legacy that rests where it belongs, in silence.
The moon is full tonight. Its light slips through the rice paper walls and settles in silver pools on the floor. You sit with your legs crossed, your calloused hands resting like ancient stones in your lap. You are not meditating in the traditional sense. There is no formal breath work, no mantras, just the quiet act of being awake within yourself. The bamboo grove outside rustles with a night breeze. Each stalk bends and returns with grace, never resisting, only swaying. You watch them through the open door. And for a long time, you feel no need to move. In your youth, stillness was something you endured between battles. Now it is something you welcome, like an old friend who speaks without voice. Earlier in the day, a young man visited your home. He was not a swordsman. He was a poet. He had heard whispers of an aging warrior who now lives among cabbages and silence. And he came not to challenge, but to learn. You served him barley tea. He brought ink and brush, hoping for words of wisdom. But you asked him to put the brush away. Observe, you said, then forget what you observed. He looked confused. So you led him to the stream, where minnows flickered like living brushstrokes. You sat together beneath a cedar tree, saying nothing. After some time, the boy began to weep. You did not ask why, and he did not explain. You both understood it wasn't sadness. It was something older, something nameless, the soul remembering itself. Now, under the moonlight, you think of that young poet and the tears that needed no cause. You recall your own journey, not just across provinces, but across the terrain of your spirit. You see now that swordsmanship was always a metaphor. Each cut a way to carve away illusion. Each stance a form of devotion. Each battle a question asking, who are you beneath all this armor? And what remains when the armor is gone? Not emptiness, but space, a vast stillness in which truth can bloom. You rise slowly and step outside. The earth is cool beneath your feet. You walk into the bamboo grove. The wind wraps itself around your shoulders like a faded houri. You pause beside one stalk and place your palm upon it. It bends slightly, then returns to center. You bow to it, and in that moment you are not a legend, not a ghost of a name. You are simply a man who walked far, fought hard, sought deeply, and finally stopped. The moon above watches in silence. The bamboo listens, and the night accepts your offering of presence. There is no more need to teach or prove, no more need to defend the path you've walked, for now the path walks with you, and the only blade you carry is the one you sheathed long ago inside your heart.
Autumn has come. The trees that surround your small hut have begun their gentle surrender, offering their golden leaves to the wind like prayers returning to the sky. You stand by the door, breathing in the cold air, the smell of wood smoke and distant pine. Each breath seems to stretch time. You watch as one leaf spirals down, silent and slow, and you follow it with your eyes until it lands on a flat stone near your feet. That one leaf took its time. It didn't fall with urgency. It let go when it was ready. You think of all the things you once clung to, names, victories, reputation, form, and how letting go wasn't an act of weakness. It was the final discipline. Once you feared aging. You feared losing your edge, your relevance, your power. But now you understand. Sharpness is not always visible. A blade hidden in silence cuts deeper. You have become like the mountain behind your home, ancient, unmoving, quiet in its wisdom. And just as the mountain is shaped by wind and rain over centuries, you too have been shaped by wounds, regrets, brief joys, and long silences. You walk into the small garden you tend each morning. Radishes, daikon, and winter greens thrive in the cool soil. You kneel to pull a stubborn weed, and as your fingers touch the earth, you feel something rare, affection, not for any one person or place, but for the world itself, the flawed, aching, beautiful world. Once you might have called it compassion. Now it feels simpler. You just care. You care that the soil is rich. You care that the birds still return each dawn to sing. You care that there is light and cold and change. And when the wind picks up and scatters a handful of leaves across your path, you smile, because you know the path was never fixed. It has always been a river, and you, just a leaf. Later, by the fire, you begin carving again. Not a sword, not a sculpture, a flute, a simple piece of bamboo, hollow, imperfect. You work slowly, not to finish, but to feel the rhythm of your hands meeting the grain. Each cut, each notch, a form of presence. When it is done, you hold it to your lips and blow gently. A soft, wavering note fills the room. Then silence. Then another. The melody is not one you learned. It is one you remembered. From the road, from childhood, from dreams. You close your eyes and let the wind carry the sound away. Outside, the last light of day leans against the horizon, and the leaves keep falling, one by one. You no longer try to catch them. You simply watch and understand that this too, this letting go, is its own form of mastery.
Tonight, as the wind hums through the cracks in your wooden walls and the embers settle into a deep orange glow, you pull out the old wooden box. You haven't opened it in years. But something calls you now, not out of longing, not regret, just readiness. Inside, folded like fragile wings, are the letters you never sent. Some written on silk-thin parchment, others scrawled hastily on scraps of rice paper. Some addressed to no one, others to everyone. You pick one up. The edges are frayed, the ink faded. It begins simply, "To the father I never knew." You remember writing it years ago, after a quiet meal alone, when memory tasted bitter. You had questions about absence, about why steel had replaced tenderness in your life. You asked him if he was proud. You asked him if he ever thought of you. But you never sent it, because the asking was enough. You unfold another. "To the boy I killed at Sekigahara." Just a boy, his blade trembling, his eyes wide, not from courage, but from fear. You saw yourself in him, the boy you were, the boy you buried to become what the world demanded. You asked for his forgiveness in that letter, but you never sent it, because you knew some debts are not paid with words. Then a different letter, shorter, newer. "To the woman whose name I never learned." You remember her, not as a lover, but as a presence, a woman who shared your fire for one night in a cold village far from the road. You spoke little. You shared rice, warmth, and silence. And in the morning, when you left, she placed a single camellia at your feet. You bowed. You wanted to say thank you. You wanted to say, "I remember." But you never sent it, because some moments don't belong to the world. They live in the space between names. You place the letters back in the box, not as burdens, not as ghosts, but as markers, each one a stone on the path behind you. You no longer need to send them, because you have learned expression is not always external. Sometimes the act of writing is enough to set the heart down gently. You rise and walk outside. The sky is pierced with stars, the kind that whisper of vastness, not loneliness. And you wonder, if someone someday writes to you, will they send it? Or will they keep it, folded in their chest, a quiet flame that asks nothing but to be felt. The wind picks up again, and in it you think you hear voices, not of the dead, but of the world speaking back. And in that sound you feel no sorrow, only stillness, only peace.
The morning comes quietly, not with the fanfare of bird song or sunlight, but with the soft scrape of your ink brush against parchment. You are writing again, not to anyone, not even for yourself, but to see what truth might emerge when the hand is honest and the mind is still. You dip the brush in black ink, watch it bloom in the shallow ceramic dish. It reminds you of blood, but not in the way of war, in the way that it connects, threading breath to breath. You begin slowly. I once believed victory was the only path. Your brush floats across the page. But I have seen too many die for the wrong reasons, too many live with the wrong victories. Each word carries weight, not from boldness, but from surrender. You write of fear, not the kind that grips a soldier before battle, but the quieter fear that comes after, when no one is watching, and you must live with what you've done. You write of loneliness, of how even the most honorable warrior sleeps alone beneath the stars. You write of beauty, how a tree split by lightning can still bloom from the stump, how forgiveness, even unspoken, can heal things steel never could. You pause, and in the silence, you remember the first time you ever saw a calligraphy master at work. You were just a boy, muddy-kneed, barefoot, peeking into a temple you weren't supposed to enter. But the brush moved like wind over water, not fast, not showy, just true. That moment stayed with you longer than your first duel, because somewhere deep down you knew there would come a day when you'd put down the sword and pick up the brush. That day is today. You finish the page, let it dry, and without ceremony you place it under a rock beside your door, where the rain might find it, where the wind might take it, where no one may ever read it. And that, strangely, feels right. You do not need a reader. You do not need approval. You only need the honesty to say what needed saying. Not to conquer, not to teach, but to understand. And in that, realize, the pen does not rival the sword. It redeems it.
You rise early, the morning mist still hanging low over the hills. The world feels softer here, quieter, away from the clash of steel and the roar of crowds. You walk slowly to the nearby stream, the cold water refreshing against your skin. It's a ritual now, one that feels more sacred than any battle preparation. You think about the concept of mushin, the mind without disturbance. Historians still debate exactly how Musashi's writings capture this state, but you feel it now in your bones. It's the peace that comes when you stop fighting the world, when you stop fighting yourself. Nearby, a bird calls, a clear, pure note cutting through the dawn. You watch it take flight, effortless and free. It reminds you of your youth, before the duels, before the endless search for supremacy. A time when the world was a vast, uncharted mystery rather than a battleground. You remember the stories you heard as a boy about the way Musashi trained not just his body, but his spirit. About how he found wisdom not only in the sword, but in the arts of painting, poetry, and meditation.
These disciplines weren't distractions. They were paths to understanding the flow of life itself. You sit by the water's edge and trace circles in the sand. It's oddly calming, each swirl a meditation. Your thoughts wander to the countless lives that intersected with Musashi's own, the friends, rivals, and strangers who shaped his journey in subtle ways. Historians still argue about the accuracy of many tales surrounding his life, but one thing is clear. His legacy is not just about winning fights. It's about the relentless pursuit of self-mastery and the quiet moments that defined the warrior behind the legend. As the sun climbs higher, you stand, feeling the weight of centuries on your shoulders and the lightness of understanding in your heart. The path is long, and you are only halfway through.
You find yourself in a small village nestled among rolling hills, the kind of place where everyone knows your name, or at least thinks they do. The air is thick with the scent of pine and freshly baked bread. This quietude contrasts sharply with the chaos you left behind on the dueling grounds. Here, the lessons of Musashi take on a different hue. It's not about clashing swords or mastering the way of the warrior alone. It's about understanding the subtle arts of connection and observation. You watch the villagers interact, their daily rituals weaving a tapestry of community and resilience. Historians still debate whether Musashi ever truly retired, or if his later years were simply quieter battles fought within. You feel the weight of that ambiguity pressing on your mind like the soft hum of cicadas in the afternoon. You recall how Musashi's The Book of Five Rings isn't just a manual for combat, but a philosophical guide, exploring strategy, timing, and the balance between action and stillness. It's a text alive with paradox, strength born from softness, victory achieved through surrender. As you wander, you come upon an elderly man painting delicate strokes on a piece of parchment. His hands tremble slightly, but his eyes are steady and clear. You recognize in him a reflection of the master you've been embodying, someone who has learned to wield creativity and patience as skillfully as a sword. You sit beside him, sharing stories without words, letting the quiet speak volumes. It's a reminder that even the fiercest warrior needs moments like this, where the noise of the world fades and all that remains is presence. In these still spaces, you realize that Musashi's greatest duel was always with himself. The relentless pursuit not just of outward mastery, but inner peace. As dusk settles, the village shifts into a gentle rhythm of evening. Lanterns flicker to life, casting warm pools of light that dance with the shadows. You feel the day's lessons settling in like sediment in a clear stream. The quietude invites reflection on how Musashi's journey transcends time and place. The warrior's path wasn't just about perfecting the katana strike or winning fights. It was about cultivating a mindset, one that balances intensity with calm, aggression with compassion. You think about how this duality applies not only in battle, but in your own life, wherever your path may lead. Historians still argue whether Musashi's writings were meant solely for samurai, or if they hold universal wisdom. You lean toward the latter, sensing that his insights echo across centuries, urging all who listen to find harmony within chaos. You recall stories of Musashi's solitary wanderings, how he often sought isolation to refine his skills and meditate on life's deeper meanings. There's an undeniable loneliness in such a pursuit, but also a profound freedom. You wonder if modern life, with its endless distractions, allows for that kind of focus. As night deepens, you feel a quiet resolve grow inside you. Like Musashi, your journey isn't about external validation, but about facing yourself honestly, with all your fears, doubts, and dreams. It's about finding strength in vulnerability and clarity amid confusion.
You close your eyes, imagining the soft whisper of bamboo leaves in a gentle breeze, the distant murmur of a mountain stream. These simple sounds ground you, reminding you that every warrior, no matter how great, returns to stillness. Tonight, you rest knowing that the greatest battles are often won in silence.
Morning breaks quietly, sunlight filtering through paper shoji screens and casting soft patterns across the wooden floor. You wake with a sense of renewal, as if touched by the spirit of Musashi himself. His life was not a straight path, but a winding road of discovery, marked by both triumphs and setbacks. You think about his famous duel at Ganryu Island, a legendary moment where skill met strategy in perfect balance. Yet, beyond the clash of swords, it was Musashi's calm mind and unwavering focus that secured his victory. This reminds you that true strength is not only physical, but mental and emotional. There's a peculiar tale that Musashi once used a wooden sword carved from a boat's oar to defeat a more heavily armed opponent. It's a quirky image, a fierce warrior wielding something so simple yet effective. It speaks to the power of creativity and adaptability, lessons you can carry into your own challenges. Scholars still debate the exact details of Musashi's duels, questioning the embellishments added over time. But whether myth or reality, the stories serve as metaphors for facing overwhelming odds with ingenuity and courage. As you prepare for your day, you consider how Musashi's approach to life calls for constant learning, an openness to change, a willingness to start anew after each fall. His legacy encourages you to embrace failure as a teacher rather than an enemy. The sun rises fully now, bathing the world in warm light. You step forward, feeling a quiet confidence stirring inside. The path ahead may be uncertain, but with the spirit of Musashi as your guide, you are ready to meet whatever comes with grace and strength. As the day winds down, you find a quiet moment to reflect on the lessons Musashi has silently imparted throughout your journey. His life was a dance between solitude and confrontation, strategy and spontaneity, discipline and freedom. You've walked alongside him through storms of battle and moments of serene meditation, understanding that mastery is less about perfection and more about persistence. Remember the way he painted, not just to create art, but to express the unspoken depths of his soul. It's a reminder that your own creativity, however small or grand, is a vital part of your path. Whether wielding a brush or facing life's challenges, each stroke, each decision shapes your story. You consider the riddles of his philosophy, the fluidity of form, the emptiness of the mind, and how they invite you to loosen your grip on rigid ideas. In this space, freedom is found. Musashi's words echo softly. You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. It nudges you to explore different perspectives without fear. Historians still debate the precise meanings behind his writings, leaving room for your own interpretation. This ambiguity is a gift, urging you to seek your own truth rather than settle for easy answers. Now, as twilight settles, you feel a gentle calm washing over you. The world slows, and with it your racing thoughts. In the quiet, you sense a timeless connection, a lineage of seekers and warriors who, like Musashi, walked their paths with courage and curiosity. So you breathe deeply, letting the stillness wrap around you like a soft cloak. The journey with Musashi may be ending for now, but the lessons, the spirit, remain within. You carry them forward, a quiet fire burning steadily in your chest. You awaken the next day feeling the lingering presence of Musashi's quiet strength. Today, your focus turns inward, pondering how his teachings about balance between mind and body, thought and action, can guide your own daily rhythm.
You recall how Musashi valued simplicity, stripping away excess to focus on what truly matters. It's tempting in your noisy, complicated world to follow every distraction, but his life reminds you that clarity arises from intentional choice. You imagine Musashi walking barefoot along a riverbank, feeling the earth beneath his feet, sensing the flow of water, a metaphor for life's constant movement. There's a lesson here in adaptability, in moving with the current rather than resisting it. You consider your own challenges and wonder how you might better flow around obstacles instead of butting heads with them. Quirky as it sounds, there's a story that Musashi once used an unusual weapon, 2 wooden swords instead of steel, during practice duels. This unconventional choice threw his opponents off balance, showing his knack for surprise and innovation. It's a reminder that sometimes breaking the rules creatively can open new doors. Historians still debate the details of Musashi's early years and what truly shaped his philosophy. This mystery invites you to appreciate the journey over the destination, to accept that not all answers are clear-cut. Life's ambiguities don't weaken us, they deepen our understanding. As you settle into your day, you carry Musashi's calm determination like a talisman, a quiet encouragement to face whatever comes with steady resolve and an open heart. The story is no longer just his, it's yours now, unfolding with every breath you take. Your mind drifts to the concept of the void, a central idea in Musashi's philosophy. The void isn't just emptiness, it's potential, the space where creativity, insight, and true understanding arise. You picture a vast, clear sky stretching endlessly, inviting you to let go of cluttered thoughts and simply be present. This is no easy task in a world buzzing with constant noise, yet Musashi's wisdom encourages you to carve out moments of stillness. In one of his lesser-known encounters, Musashi reportedly used his intuition to sense an opponent's intention before any movement was made. This heightened awareness was not about physical sight alone, but a profound connection between mind and environment. It's a skill you realize is worth cultivating, not just in combat, but in everyday life. Imagine catching the subtle cues of a conversation or anticipating changes in your surroundings with the same grace. There's a quirky tale that Musashi sometimes challenged opponents with a wooden sword during serious duels, confusing them enough to gain the upper hand. It's a playful reminder that strength isn't only about force, but cleverness and unpredictability. You chuckle softly at the idea of your future self incorporating a bit of that unexpected creativity into daily problem solving. Scholars continue to debate the exact nature of Musashi's later years, including where and how he composed his famous treatise, The Book of Five Rings. This uncertainty invites you to embrace mystery as part of your own story. Not knowing everything doesn't diminish your journey, it enriches it. As evening settles, you feel a quiet gratitude for this ancient warrior's lessons, reminders that true strength often lies in simplicity, presence, and an open mind. You find yourself reflecting on Musashi's practice of Zen, not as a formal religion, but as a way of training the mind to remain calm amidst chaos. Picture sitting quietly by a gently flowing river, watching the water move without resistance. That's how Musashi approached life and combat, fluid, adaptable, and always in the moment. You realize this peaceful approach is a radical contrast to the fierce reputation he holds. It's a reminder that sometimes the loudest strength is silent patience. Musashi's lifestyle was marked by discipline but also a certain humility. Despite his fame as a swordsman, he lived simply, often wandering with minimal possessions. This minimalist way of living resonates deeply with you, especially in a world obsessed with accumulation. You imagine yourself shedding unnecessary burdens, both physical and mental, learning to carry only what truly matters. A fascinating anecdote tells of Musashi carving a wooden sculpture during his later years. This creative outlet was more than just pastime, it was meditation in motion. Engaging with art was his way to explore balance and form, qualities essential both in battle and life. You start to see how cultivating diverse skills can enrich your understanding of the world and yourself. Historians still argue whether Musashi ever truly sought peace or simply adapted to the harsh realities of his era. This ambiguity encourages you to accept that life isn't about clear-cut answers, but embracing complexity with grace. You feel comforted by the idea that your own path may not be perfectly defined, and that's perfectly okay. As the day fades, you hold these thoughts close, feeling more connected to Musashi's quiet strength and his journey towards self-mastery. Now, as the sun sets behind distant mountains, you imagine Musashi preparing for one final duel, not against a rival swordsman, but against his own inner fears and doubts. He understood that the greatest battles are often invisible, fought within the mind. This introspective struggle is something you recognize all too well. It's the quiet wrestling match you face each day, balancing ambition with humility, courage with caution. Musashi's writings reveal a deep belief in constant learning. He wasn't satisfied with mastery in swordsmanship alone, but sought wisdom from many sources: poetry, calligraphy, strategy, and philosophy. This holistic approach encourages you to expand your own horizons. Perhaps the true way forward isn't just to perfect one skill, but to explore the richness of life's many layers. One quirky story speaks of Musashi's habit of practicing with wooden swords during the night when others slept. The moonlight filtering through paper screens created an almost otherworldly scene, a solitary warrior dancing with shadows. You smile, imagining the dedication it took to train so relentlessly, even when no one watched. It's a reminder that real progress happens away from the spotlight, in those quiet hours of persistence. Historians still debate how much of Musashi's legend was built by himself, carefully crafting his image to inspire fear or respect. This makes you ponder how you present yourself to the world versus who you truly are beneath the surface. You start to appreciate the power and the danger of storytelling, both personal and collective. As night deepens, you feel a calm resolve settling in. Like Musashi, your greatest opponent may be your own hesitation. But armed with patience and curiosity, you are ready to face whatever comes next.
The years have weathered Musashi's body, but his mind remains razor-sharp, focused on the essence of life and battle. By now, you're aware that his journey wasn't just about winning duels, but about transcending conflict itself. He believed that true mastery comes when the fight ends, not through victory or defeat, but through understanding. It's a profound thought, especially when life often feels like a series of battles with no clear winners. One of Musashi's lesser-known habits was his enjoyment of simple pleasures: tea ceremonies, quiet walks, and the occasional moment of laughter with a companion. These small joys provided balance amid his intense discipline. You recall how, in your own life, the toughest moments were softened by brief pauses, those cups of tea, those walks in the park. They aren't distractions, but vital breaths in your ongoing story. There's a curious tale about Musashi once challenging multiple opponents alone, not to prove his strength, but to teach a lesson about overconfidence. His calm demeanor unsettled the crowd as much as his skill. This raises a question that lingers. How often do you face challenges not with brute force, but with measured patience and strategy? It's something to reflect on as you continue your own path. Historians still argue about the exact timeline of Musashi's final years, with some suggesting he lived more quietly, detached from fame. This ambiguity invites you to think about legacy and how it's shaped not just by actions, but by stories passed down through generations. How will your story be told someday? As the night deepens, you feel a sense of peace wash over you. Musashi's life, with all its complexity, reminds you that mastery is a journey, not a destination. Now, as you settle deeper into this tale, you realize that Musashi's philosophy wasn't just about swordsmanship,
but about life itself. His famous Book of Five Rings isn't a manual for warriors alone. It's a meditation on adaptability, presence, and embracing change. Imagine holding that text in your hands, its pages worn but filled with wisdom centuries old. The words challenge you to rethink your battles, big or small. Musashi lived through tumultuous times. Feudal Japan was a world of shifting alliances, honor codes, and constant uncertainty. Yet he found clarity by focusing inward. There's a story that when asked about fear, Musashi simply replied that it disappears once you accept the inevitability of change. It's a hard truth, but also a freeing one. How often do you cling to certainty, even when life pushes you to release it? Interestingly, Musashi's life inspired not just warriors but artists too. He was a skilled painter and calligrapher, showing that the creative and the martial can coexist. Maybe your own creative sparks are the quiet duelists within, waiting for you to pick up the brush or pen instead of the sword. This interplay between art and action is a thread that runs through many great lives. Some scholars debate how much Musashi's teachings were influenced by Zen Buddhism or Taoism, highlighting the fluid blending of cultures and ideas. This ongoing conversation invites you to explore beyond the surface of any philosophy, finding your own truths amidst layered meanings. As your eyes grow heavy, remember this: mastery isn't perfection, it's a dance with imperfection.
You find yourself drifting through Musashi's later years, where the relentless duels gave way to quiet reflection. His battles had ceased, but his journey was far from over. Living in a small hut, far from the clamor of samurai conflict, he spent time refining his thoughts and art. It's here you glimpse the man behind the myth, a man who sought peace in solitude and clarity in simplicity. There's a subtle lesson in this transition. Even the fiercest warrior needs moments of stillness. You might relate to this after a long day or a lifetime of challenges. That urge to pause, to catch your breath, is not weakness but wisdom. It's the soil where insight grows. Musashi's brushstrokes weren't just artistic expressions, they were extensions of his mind. Each line deliberate, each shape embodying balance and intention. This integration of mind and body echoes in your own life, in how your daily actions reflect your inner state, whether you realize it or not. Historians continue to debate the extent to which Musashi's solitary lifestyle was voluntary or forced by circumstance. Was he truly at peace or simply resigned? This ambiguity adds a layer of humanity to the legend, reminding you that greatness often carries its shadows. Tonight, as you listen, you might sense Musashi's quiet courage, the courage to face not just external enemies, but your own fears and doubts. And maybe that is the greatest battle of all. As the years pass, you notice how Musashi's philosophy evolves, blending the art of war with the art of life. He pens the Book of Five Rings not just as a manual for swordsmanship, but as a guide to navigating the complexities of existence. Reading his words feels like sitting across from him by a quiet fire, absorbing the steady wisdom of someone who's seen both the blade's edge and the stillness beyond. His teachings emphasize adaptability, a principle you can apply beyond dueling, whether it's in your work, relationships, or inner struggles. Musashi's insistence on fluidity, on being like water, encourages you to flow with life's unpredictability rather than resist it. It's an idea that resonates through centuries, proving timeless in its simplicity. You might chuckle at the thought that this famed swordsman also advised avoiding attachment, not just to people or things, but even to fixed strategies. Imagine Musashi shrugging off rigid plans with a wry smile, reminding you that sometimes the best tactic is to let go. There's a quirky story whispered among scholars that Musashi once fought a duel armed only with a wooden sword, choosing strategy over brute force.
Whether myth or truth, it paints a picture of a man who valued mind over muscle, a reminder that brains often win over brawn. Historians still argue about how much of the Book of Five Rings is pure philosophy versus practical combat advice. This ongoing debate invites you to ponder how you might blend your own values with the realities you face, balancing ideals with action. In this quiet moment with Musashi's legacy, you're reminded that mastery is not an endpoint, but a journey, a continuous dance of learning, unlearning, and adapting. Just like him, you're walking your path, sword in hand or not, with your own battles and breakthroughs. You find yourself reflecting on Musashi's later years, when the relentless battles slowed and he sought solitude in the mountains. Here, the man who once wielded two swords now wields brush and ink, channeling his fierce energy into art and poetry. His calligraphy flows with the same grace that guided his strikes, each stroke deliberate yet free, capturing the essence of a life lived fully. Imagine the quiet mornings, the mist curling through pine trees, as Musashi sketches the world around him. It's a side of him less known, but no less profound. His paintings of birds, flowers, and landscapes reveal a sensitivity beneath the warrior's hardened exterior. This duality, strength and softness intertwined, offers you a new lens on what it means to be whole. There's an almost paradoxical lesson here. To conquer the world, one must first conquer oneself. Musashi's solitude is not isolation, but a deep engagement with his inner world. This inward journey might feel familiar. You've had moments where silence taught more than words ever could. A curious detail you stumble upon is Musashi's unconventional lifestyle. Unmarried, without children, wandering freely. He defied many social norms, embracing a solitary path that suited his restless spirit. This sparks a question: how much do societal expectations shape our own life choices? Scholars debate whether Musashi's withdrawal was a retreat or a strategic pause, a way to sharpen his mind as much as his sword. That tension between engagement and withdrawal mirrors many of your own struggles with balance and purpose. As you imagine Musashi painting under the fading light, you realize that his legacy is not just about victory in battle, but the courage to live authentically, to embrace complexity, and to keep evolving, lessons that echo softly into your own story. Now you reach the final chapter of Musashi's journey, the quiet end of a tumultuous life. He lays down his swords not in defeat, but in acceptance, a recognition that mastery is a lifelong pursuit, never truly complete. As he breathes his last, the world is changed by the legend he leaves behind. Yet the man himself remains a mystery, woven from both fact and myth. You picture the room where he passed away, simple and unadorned, filled with the stillness that follows a long storm. It's humbling to realize that even the greatest warriors face the same final moment as anyone else. This shared vulnerability bridges centuries and cultures, reminding you of the fragile beauty of life. The story of Musashi does not end with his death. It evolves through the countless lives he has touched. His teachings continue to inspire artists, fighters, and thinkers alike, encouraging a mindset that values discipline, resilience, and presence. You might see echoes of his philosophy in your own daily routines or challenges, a quiet nudge to stay true to your path. One intriguing note lingers: the mystery of his final days. Historians still debate whether he died of illness, exhaustion, or something more enigmatic. This uncertainty invites you to ponder the nature of legacy. How much do we control, and how much is left to chance or interpretation? As you close this chapter, a sense of calm settles over you. Musashi's life, with all its battles, solitude, and art, offers a mirror for your own journey. A reminder that strength lies not only in action, but in reflection. Now, as the night deepens and your eyes grow heavy, remember the lessons of this wandering swordsman. Live fully, fight fiercely, and never stop seeking your own truth.